I look back at the times before I developed HPPD, and man, it was so great back then. Like, I guess that's how I would feel. Like, my life was perfect, even though it wasn't. Today I kind of feel like I'm half of what I used to be like, I would say.
On paper, people could look in and think that I've got a pretty good life, really. I've worked for a good company. I've had multiple businesses. I'm married. I've lived all across the world. But inside things, there's always problems. I can't drive. We've pretty much decided that we can't have kids because of my issues. The anxiety really gets to me. Social life, I've got good friends and family, but it takes me a long time to sort of get over the anxiety of the idea of just going out for a drink with friends, or popping around to see my mum and dad. Things that should be the most natural things in the world become a real problem for me. I have to sit and really sort of calm myself down before I can even go and think about doing these sort of things, or take medication, which it's a pretty sad existence where you have to take 2 milligrams of clonazepam just to go and speak to your mum and dad and feel fairly comfortable doing that.
I'm Henry Abraham. I'm a psychiatrist, and I'm now retired, and after 50-some years of practice. HPPD is a disorder of perception related to the abuse or use or accidental ingestion of hallucinogenic drugs.
I sort of split it into 3 categories. So you've got the vision side of things, which is like a layer in front of my vision. So I see a lot of TV static and a lot of movement. I see a lot of blue and green geometric shapes and patterns that are constantly moving. I have, like, my whole entire visual field flashes about 6 or 7 times a second. If I see any kind of light stimulus, even if it's looking at a computer screen or a car headlight or something like that, that stays with me for sometimes upwards of a minute or so. If I move my hand, for instance, too fast in front of my eyes, I see like a trailing motion of that hand. So rather than just seeing a little bit of blur as it comes past, I'll see like a trail that follows my hand for sometimes like a second or 2.
Trails are what I think is a pathognomonic symptom of HPPD. By pathognomonic in medicine, we mean it's absolutely diagnostic. It's not diagnostic of really anything else. If you got trails, the probability is very high that you have HPPD. So what are trails? So when I ask about trails, I keep my hands sort of locked up in my folded arms, don't give any clues away. And I say, what are trails? And the patient says, I don't know what you're talking about, Dr. Abraham. That's great. That's a good answer. That's the best answer I could ask for. If they say, oh, you mean these, and they wave their hand across their face, that's diagnostic. It's pathognomonic of HPPD. And what they're seeing is a series of frozen images of their hand in space as it moves across the visual field. In other words, the eye sees, the object moves on, but the eye keeps seeing.
So I remember going to Glastonbury Festival, it was a music festival here in Britain. That was in 1995, and we took a LSD called a microdot, which was a very, very strong LSD experience. And I remember the next day waking up, it'd been a strong experience, but one that I'd been through a few different times and didn't really think too much of it. And then I woke up the next day and sort of looked at the ceiling of my tent and saw like a watercolour painting of like a perfect city with cathedrals and rivers running through it. And that's where I sort of realised, hang on, something has changed pretty deeply inside of me. Not just seeing this thing after a night of sleep where usually you've come down, but my thought patterns were a lot stranger than they normally would be, and just my body felt disconnected. And also I experienced quite a lot of pain in my mind or in my brain. It feels like a mixture of physical pain and mental pain sort of mixed into one. Now, I've tried to describe it before, and the closest thing I can come to describing it is a feeling of being poisoned, or how I imagine having poison sort of in your blood feels, where you've got this sort of burning sensation down the side, but inside your brain, so it feels like it's sort of like part of the blood in your brain. It does couple into the mental pain as well, so I do think the two things are connected somehow.
Now, we're talking about something that occurs maybe 4% of the time. And it's caused by most people who develop it. They say, I know, I did it, I took the drug, I developed the problem, it's my fault, I'm guilty. And people feel guilt and shame over having done something which has put them into some kind of trouble. And so if you're feeling guilty and shamed, you're not likely to go get help for yourself.
Moving back to the UK, I got the similar sort of problems again, where they never said specifically that they didn't believe me, and that's probably because I was an adult at that time rather than just a kid going in, but yeah, you could certainly sense a feeling of they're not sure here, and they sort of thought that I've just seen something on the internet and diagnosed myself.
It hasn't really made an impact in the field at large. Most psychiatrists don't know what HPPD is, and it's just, what's going on here? What's going on is that they're not seeing it, and more importantly, there's no great cure for it. If they had a magic potion, they could sell the magic potion on the street corners, but they don't. And so they can't do that. And compared to some of the behemoths in psychiatry, like depression and schizophrenia, anxiety disorder, it's a sort of a weak sister. So when push comes to shove, decreased interest, decreased prevalence, absence of treatment, and my own inability to really educate people as widely as I had hoped.
I think the public need to know that it's a real condition. There's a lot of talk on certain forums and websites that it's a bit of a myth, and we need to get that clear that it definitely isn't a myth. It's a serious issue, and sadly it can happen at any stage of your drug taking. Some people can get it on their first experience with LSD or MDMA, and some people like myself can have multiple drug experiences, and then just have one experience that takes you to the next level. Sometimes I tell people and explain to people what HPPD is, and they think it's a cool thing. They're like quite excited and, oh wow, it must be amazing to have this free trip every day. They need to understand that it's not there's nothing cool about this, And this is a problem with mental illness on a global scale, that there's this idea that it's a cool thing, You look at TV programs like Mr. Robot and certain films and stuff, like Fight Club and stuff, that sort of glamorise the idea of mental illness and make it look very cool, and the guy still goes out and gets the girl and has all these cool adventures and stuff like that. That might be the case, and that's all, that has happened to me as well. You still live your life, you still go through these events, but as you're going through these events, you're struggling every second of those events happening. You're not having any fun, you're not thinking, wow, this is cool. All you're thinking is, my head is ill, my mental state is wrong, you cannot enjoy a single second of anything really good that happens to you, because you're constantly in a sort of mental illness that doesn't allow that to happen. There are ways to manage it. There are ways to sort of help your brain start getting over things. And, you know, my one good piece of advice is, when it first hits you, you know, do whatever you can to take the stress off your life. So, you know, if you've just got to lock yourself in your room, watch films and TV, read a book, whatever helps, just do that for a bit. You know, don't get overly stressed about having to, you know, if you're missing college work, or, you know, you're missing your social life, or your friends are becoming distant. Just, you know, take that bit of time for yourself, and just try and de-stress a little bit, because stress really feeds into HPPD. So if, you know, the more you can eliminate stress, the better. But on a similar note, you know, do that for a little bit, but once you start feeling a little bit better, then go out and grab life like you were going to anyway. You know, don't let this define who you are. You've got to jump straight back into life, otherwise this thing can destroy you. So, you know, if you're struggling to make small talk with people, just take it one step at a time, and just make a little bit of small talk with someone, and, you know, tick that off as something really cool that you've done today, and just keep building up, because the more you get over anxieties, the easier life becomes, and the easier HPPD becomes.
The final thing I would say about this problem is that we need a little magic in the practice of medicine, and modulated magic, if you will, and for several reasons. I remember a medical school lecture where the professor said, "Now, everything that we've told you, half of it is wrong, but we don't know which half." And I think that's a problem. You know, we don't have all the answers. We really don't. And we have to recognize that. And what do we replace our ignorance with? And I think, you know, William Osler said it quite nicely. We replace that with hope, you know, and you know, emotional support. And these are things that are not so quantified, and they borrow to a certain extent from the shamanistic tradition. It may not be rational, but we stay with you, and we give you the potion, which we hope will do the job.